Purposely. Your life, God's purpose. Listen at onpurposely.com.
Have you ever wished you could know what the future held before you got there? What if you were given the gift of knowledge before you even began your journey? Now, I've been thinking about that because I made a lot of stupid mistakes when I was younger. And I wish I had someone to say, don't go down that road, go down this one. I'm Sherry, and welcome to From the Eyes of Wisdom, where we are pairing an experienced elder from CRISTA Senior Living with a passionate King's High School student ready to launch into the world. And while these conversations won't tell the future exactly, they did reveal a lot we weren't expecting about how to live life well. Are you ready? I can't wait for you to hear this. All right, we are back with another episode of just transferring wisdom from a life well lived. I have Elaine here. I have Ellie. It's Elliana, right?
Yes,
but
my full name. Yep.
But you go by Ellie.
I go by Ellie. Yep.
Okay. So tell me about you and thinking about missions. What is that? What sparked that interest for you? And what do you see when you think about missions, and where you see yourself?
Yeah. So this year, I feel like God really put on my heart. There's a new class that came out. So it's an elective. It's called Global Missions. And I saw that class, and I saw it was taught by my favorite teacher, my Bible teacher from junior year. And I was like, wow, like, I really feel like God is calling me, to be at this class and really just kind of see what it's about. So I signed up for it. I was really excited. Going into that class, I was like, okay, this is cool. And then I started to really get to know the people around me. And it was just really awesome to be in a room full of believers and just really like leaning into that and leaning into his word. I just feel like God is leading me sometime in my life to go on a mission. I don't know when that will be. I just know that he will call me to a mission when it's his time.
So you have a heart for it.
Yeah, I do.
Okay,
yeah.
Good. So let's talk to Elaine, who has done this with her life.
Yes.
Elaine, you didn't start out like, hey, I'm going to do missions, medical missions. You started out as a nurse.
Yes, yes.
Did you always want to be a nurse?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
From what age? What age can you remember?
Do you remember I was going to go to Kentucky?
Yeah.
And be a nurse on horseback.
Okay.
And learn the language of the hill people.
Okay.
And they'd give me a cow and a horse in a barn, and
that was your dream.
Yeah. Well, and so I was. Of course, I was raised on a farm, so I thought, wow, that's pretty great.
Okay.
Are they going to bring hay every month, or what are they going to do?
You're going to be a horseback nurse. Yeah. Okay.
And I wanted to, when I got out of being a nurse, when I got my RN, I wanted to raise money to give to my parents to gravel a road so they could get out of the farm much easier.
Okay.
And so my goal was find a job that I could, because it was struggle.
So so you're thinking, I'm going to be a nurse. I'm going to make enough money to pave the road here so that my dad doesn't have to work so hard, getting out from the snow. Maybe I'll get on a horseback in Kentucky and do some stuff there as a nurse. That's your thought process, right, when you become a nurse. And then your father dies of cancer, is that correct?
Yes.
And so your mom then comes to live with you.
Yes.
Okay.
But she couldn't run the farm.
Right. And so was she, did I hear this, like, was there some dementia there, or was she as she was getting older?
Not when she first moved with me.
But as she was getting older.
But she was the one who sat me down with my brother, and we had Bible study. And I remember names and things stories she'd tell me. But I was so interested in the maps in the back of my Bible that showed where Paul walked and all of those things. When I look back on that now,
I
did that, and I had no idea that's where I was going to go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness! Look at I just things like that make me. I don't want to say happy. It's just I love when you can see the hand of God, right?
Yeah.
Just his fingerprints somewhere. Yeah. You're looking in the back of the Bible, you see the maps. Oh, look at that, look at that.
Yes.
And then fast forward, and God's like, oh, no, you're going to go to all of those places, right?
Yeah.
So tell me how you started even getting into missions. From what I understand, your mom was getting not well.
Yes.
She was in a nursing home that you didn't quite like.
Oh, yes.
So
I knew I had to find another place.
And how did you go about doing that?
Well, I drove by CRISTA on my way downtown. I saw all this whole CRISTA layout and all the cars, and I knew that it had to do with religion.
Yeah.
I thought, well, I ought to go in there and check and see if they would take her.
Okay.
And I told them that she was a wonderful Christian lady, and that I needed to find a place that she would find love and care. And I said, and I'll work for you for nothing if you let me bring her in.
As a nurse or in that way? Okay.
And he just smiled and he said, why don't you bring her in tomorrow? Okay. Well, it was so exciting because I knew nothing about CRISTA. I didn't even know it was called King's Garden.
Okay.
And so I got a rocking chair and I had that in the room, and when I brought her in, the next morning she had had a stroke at night and never spoke again, which was so hard for me to understand. Where's God? I finally found a place that she would have loved this. Well, I started taking care of everybody else that was there and her, and I fed these people, and I wiped up the urine off of the floor. And,
so you're volunteering, like you said you would.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
And I started a program for the men because they had nothing to do, so I had my husband make toys, and they sanded them, and so I think they finally got tired of me running around doing all this. And one of the women in rehab said, oh, Elaine, you should go up to World Concern. They're looking for a nurse. At that time, there was a Medicines for Mission. Have you ever heard that?
Yes. And from what I understand is that is this like, okay, samples at a doctor, they have too much medicine here, let's give this over to this mission, and you can give it out to the world, right?
Okay.
So at some point they are sending medicine to other countries who request it. Is that right?
Yes, they were a mission that was out there, and they had medical people there.
Okay.
And I
in another country.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. So
Okay.
I decided that this was there. They need to be medical people ordering this. Otherwise, what were they doing with this?
Yeah, this is where the warrior starts coming in, Elaine, because when I was reading your story, it was almost as if you're like, okay, we're sending these things out there. I don't know who's requesting it. I don't know who I'm giving it to. I don't know what they're doing with it. So I'll go check and see what's going on.
That's right.
That's what you did?
Yeah.
That's what I did.
Wow.
And you wanted to hold them accountable. So what was your very first overseas trip?
Somalia.
Somalia.
Oh, wow.
In all of these wonderful stories that we're going to get to here, you do have a husband who seems to be cheering you on.
That's right.
And is really excited that his wife is out there. That is
so incredible.
incredible
Yeah.
and I think rare. I'm not sure. It's rare.
He
Easier
was
said than done.
very special.
Yeah.
Tell me, what was
Well,
it about him that was like, go for it?
Here I'm sitting with all these, and I was the only woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
And and so they immediately began doing my passport and getting my visa and calling what airlines I would go out on. And
You haven't talked to Earl yet.
but I wasn't even thinking of that.
Yeah.
I thought, how am I going to tell Earl?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting, and I just said, Earl, I'm going to go to Somalia.
Straight up said it?
Yes.
Wow.
Honesty's the best policy.
He turned to me and he said, well, when do you leave? And so I began to tell him about these 40,000 people.
Wow.
and all, and he said, well, honey, that's all right. He says, I know you'll do something good for those people, and you're following what you want to do. So when I arrived, I still went through all kinds of crazy things by myself. And we had a land.
I don't know why I thought you went with the team. You went.
Yeah, I thought so too.
No, they came later. They came after I got there, and they organized a Land Rover car, so we'd have a way that we could pull people out of the sand, and we could push, or they could, and so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is it true that did you get bit by a scorpion?
Yes.
What?
On this finger. Can you imagine? We slept in a tent.
Oh no.
Okay. All right.
We had a big tent, and the doctor and his wife, and then we stung a rope across the middle of it, and they lived on one side, and I lived on the other side of the rope. And we had just a tarp on the ground, what wasn't connected to the walls. And it was pouring rain, just pouring rain. And the water was coming in on this tarp, and we had a lot of our food there.
Yeah.
And so I got up and I reached my hand to pull up the tarp, and he got me. It was the most excruciating pain I've ever felt. Wow. It was like I put my finger in a fire. It was just terrible. So the doc, we both knew where this stick the doctors had made I guess you'd just call it a medicine room.
Yeah, okay.
And so we knew we had some Novocaine there, so we got to go.
Yeah.
So, Elaine, I'm listening to the story, and I'm like, and I'm sure I'm going to ask you this when you were in other countries. It's going to be the same question. There's no point where you're like, I'm going home. Enough of this.
Oh, my goodness, no.
Really? I would have took my stamp and my back in the Land Rover, and I'm headed back home.
I know, I just got stung by a scorpion.
There's no point. You're just like, the mission is the mission.
Yeah, yes, I was on a mission.
Yeah.
I was out to help 60,000 people, which, is a pretty stupid way to look at it.
No, it's not. I'm in awe of it. So, Ellie, tell me your thoughts about doing missions now. Well, here's what I will say is, to go through that, you better be called.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I was going to say, just the amount of faith that you have to have, to be able to go and do that and go through
your other life here is not there.
Exactly. No, it's just amazing. I mean, you really have to be called to be able to do that. And I feel like I have always loved helping people, and just no matter, what condition, I just feel called to that.
Yeah.
And,
what do you feel about traveling? Have you wanted to do that?
I mean, I'd love to travel. I would want to study abroad, but I'm playing soccer in college, so I can't really do that. But I really would love to travel, yeah. Okay.
So we're going to go from Somalia, and now I'd like you to go to the war in Lebanon.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Okay.
Because you were there.
They notified me that there was a mission that needed 3 nurses to go to the war and work in the hospital there in Beirut.
And again, your hand goes up.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I was on my way.
That's amazing.
Wow.
We had to get a gunboat across the Mediterranean at night to get into Lebanon. It finally got us into Lebanon. Mm-hmm. And rockets were shooting off of the hills.
My goodness.
And we got to a building, and we got up on top of this building to wait for somebody to come and get us. Mm-hmm. And this man said, where are you from? And so I said, we were from Seattle. And so he said, well, I'm glad to meet you. I'm Peter Jennings. Well, I almost fell off the building top.
You didn't notice him?
And I loved to hear him give the news and
Yeah.
everything. He was so great. That was the starting of the war.
Okay.
So they filled containers with concrete to block off streets. So there was no, you couldn't burn it down or anything.
Yeah.
And so that we had to weave our way around and to get into this hospital.
And did I also read that did someone pull a gun on you or some of the nurses, or did someone have a gun?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I always wore my uniform because at least they knew.
Your nurse.
Yeah.
And in the streets, you never parked in the streets. You parked on the sidewalk because tanks would go down the street and run right over the top of your car if you left it. You know, so walking, that was my one fear was that of a bomb, because there were a lot of car bombs.
Yeah.
You know, and there's no way out of that.
Yeah.
So I was walking back to the hospital, and this guy came with his gun, and he pointed it at me. He just...
Were you by yourself, or were the other nurses
No,
with
I
you?
was by myself.
Oh, Elaine.
And,
Me and Ellie are like, no, Elaine. I mean, obviously you're here, you made it, but oh my goodness.
But wow.
So he held that gun on me,
Oh my goodness.
and I stood there. There was cars right there, and I'm here, and he's here, and I didn't want to walk by him.
Yeah.
And I just smiled at him,
Oh wow.
and he put the gun down and walked away. Wow. I thought, God really told you what to do.
Yeah, right? There's an angel somewhere here that I didn't see, but you saw, and thank God.
Yeah.
How long were you there in Lebanon?
Oh, we were there 4 months. Wow. And it was
Hard time.
the sad part was, there's two joys. Mm-hmm. The sad part was that we worked in the hospital in the daytime, and I was assigned to a little boy who was spraying his bicycle with a blue spray in his apartment, and the firing went through and exploded the can, and he was just burned all over. He had a mother and a grandmother and a family, and so they were there every day with him. I wished I would had the language that I could talk with him, other than hugs and, you know.
Oh, yeah.
His body just eventually just fell apart. I was heartbroken. Because I couldn't save him, I guess. At night, we would go out on the street, and the people who were shot or injured or whatever, we drug them into a building where it was dark, and we had flashlights in our mouth so we could see what we were doing.
Wow.
And we kind of did first aid at night. It was terrible. People, the apartments, they'd blast off the front, and you'd see them walking up there cooking, and, you know,
with the whole front of the apartment building
gone. Everything gone. Wow. It was just like an open.
Oh my goodness.
And they were, 6, 7 floors.
Yeah.
Oh, and people were weeping, and they dropped an air bomb down a chimney in our building, which was just to make noise.
Right.
Wow.
Well, that was pretty scary.
I'm sure, because you think you're getting blown up there.
Well, yeah. I knew. I felt I needed to be there, but I knew that this was a pretty tragic place to be.
I want to go to Ellie because I do want to ask you, with these stories that we have now, tell me what you're thinking about missions. Tell me where you see yourself. Can you see yourself over a barrel, literally? Like, what are your thoughts hearing these stories? Very real stories from a person who lived this
it's
stuff.
crazy to really hear it from somebody who has experienced it, because we usually just hear stories like, oh, this happened, it just doesn't seem real, you know? I think, like...
Do you have any questions?
I mean...
Well, I hope that my stories really have a feeling, a meaning to you.
Really, they really
that
do.
It really happens.
It really does. Yes, we just hear about it. I mean, we don't really think about it.
Well, like in Somalia, when somebody dies, they have to wrap them in something white to bury them, and we finally ran out of nightgowns and anything that was white. Now that was something I learned about their culture.
Yeah. And I'm sure you're learning along the way, because it's so different. Did you say you have a question?
Yes, I did have a question.
Okay.
So I was wondering how you got, like, the money to go to all these places, because I feel like that's a really big factor in, like, mission trips and, Like, did you get donations or did you fundraise? Like,
I fundraised
A lot,
before
yeah.
I left.
Okay,
Yes,
yeah,
but
okay.
they also would arrange. Had my tickets arranged,
Okay.
in places
Got
that
it,
I
okay.
couldn't do it. So,
Okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
I'm sure we have to wrap up, but I just want, if you can tell me just, how long were you in Chernobyl?
Well, can I just tell you about Chernobyl?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Love to hear.
World Concern received this letter from Kiev
Okay.
that could we come and help them? That they had no medicines and things were really bad, and they were controlled by Russia at that time,
Yeah.
and that was '91, and they couldn't speak their native language. They had to always work in Russian, and I mean it was
Yeah.
control. We met as a church in an old house.
When you were there?
Yes, and because they had no churches. They had the Orthodox Church, but they didn't have anything else.
Yeah.
The kids.
What were you there to do? Were you there to do nursing or work in a
Yes,
hospital
yeah.
or something?
Oh, yes, I did that, and
Okay.
I taught these women how to do tell the flannel graphs. That you tell stories. You put the people. You have to cut out these.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Oh.
And so I arranged for a team of 10 women who would go in the schools, and the teacher would leave for an hour, and this Bible teacher then could tell the story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Well, that was really great. So I came home and I got some more stuff and went back, and all their fingers were all bandaged up. They didn't have any scissors except those little paper scissors that you have.
yeah.
And
Wow.
they were all
Yeah,
blistered
paper-
and everything.
paper
I
cuts.
never,
Oh, my goodness.
dreamed.
Wow.
So that was my beginning to know the basic things.
Yeah.
And then I found that the guy that scrubbed the floor, the doctor, any other nurses, they set that time and they'd come in and listen to these Bible
Bible
studies.
stories.
Yes. And so that was wonderful. And I brought instruments to them, and they had just rusty old stuff. Oh, it was terrible.
Oh, yeah.
How long were you there again?
13 years.
So you're going back and forth for 13 years.
Yes, yes. Wow. But what happened, the president of World Concern wrote to him and told him that we only went to third world countries where they didn't have school and medicine, and all this. And they wrote back and said, please come and visit us, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the president said, well, Elaine, let's go. Let's go see what it is. When we got back, they said, well, they do really need help. But we were in the budget year that we couldn't take any of them because, that was it. So I said, okay, I'll come and I'll do this, and I will. You don't have to pay me anything, and just put me on the as I'm an employee, and pay me $1 a year.
To go back and forth.
And and I'll raise the money, and I'll do it.
Wow.
So I started with the orphanage, and it's just terrible. Kids had wet the bed so many times that it had rotted a hole, and they were sleeping on cardboard over the hole. Food was terrible. They didn't have enough dishes.
So you're there, and year by year, you're gradually getting things up to you're making things better.
Oh yes,
Little by little.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
For $1 a year.
Yes.
Wow.
And sometimes I'd come home and he said, "Did I pay you this year?" And he'd get down on his knees and give
And
me
hand you $1.
Here's your dollar.
I made $13.
Hey.
Wow, 13
All right.
years.
I came back to raise the money, and so I had pictures of things. And it rained. When it rained, the water ran down the walls inside, and it stopped. It stopped. It was just terrible. The toilets didn't work and everything. So I had pictures for it like this, and so I said when I was coming back, I said when I went home, what could I bring you that you really need?
Yeah.
And she says, a roof for the building.
Oh, yeah.
A week after I got back, I was really troubled about this. And the president called me and he said, I got a call from a guy that works for Microsoft, and he quit because he had to manage his money. And he has adopted 7 Russian kids, and he's not having very good luck with them. And he said, I think that you guys know how to do this better than I do. And he said, would we be interested? And so I had a call from the president, and he said, and do you know an orphanage that needs any help? No, I mean,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
He let me stew for a little while.
Yeah.
And I said, do I know an orphanage? So I said, let's go see this man.
Yeah.
Counting his money. So I took my pictures and I went out there and showed them all to that and told him, we'd had a nice talk, and he was a nice man and everything. And that was that. And a week later, he sent me $50,000.
Oh my goodness.
Elaine.
$50,000. Oh my goodness! It was. We put a roof on there. We built an outside toilet in case they didn't make the other thing. Everybody had a new bed and a new mattress and a little rug. And I papered the walls of this for these kids. Those kids didn't fight anymore. They worked to keep this all up because they could have the television for a week if they won the prize of the best room.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
I got them dishes so that everybody could eat at the same time, and I killed all the bugs. It was marvelous.
Well, now I
amazing.
understand why it's 13 years.
Yeah.
Because you were incrementally.
And every time I go out, I made them account for every penny.
Yeah, Mrs. Thatcher.
Every penny. And I made them assure me that they would hire men from the church that had the skills, and that they would be paid, and that we don't hire outside the church.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So he did.
Wow.
And it was wonderful.
It sounds wonderful. It sounds like, this is what I again love about it, is when you can just be able to point to God's faithfulness.
Yeah.
Point to God's faithfulness.
my
Point to God's faithfulness. Point to God's faithfulness. I want you to take that from that, and I also want to give you this, because that, and I want to give you this. Okay. Elaine, Ellie's thinking about missions. You have given her some stories where she's like, woo!
Well, she's got to come see me down in Cristwood.
Of course I will.
Yes.
Of course. I'd love to hear so many more.
If she says, hey, give me one piece of advice that I'll have for the rest of my life on this card. I'll be 30, I'll look at this card. I'll be 40, look at this card. Remember, Elaine told me this is the one piece of advice you need for your life. What would that be?
Well, Ellie, I think you need to be a nurse.
Oh, wow.
Or get into a because all
Something
these
medical.
places have sick people.
Yeah, 100%.
They're all suffering. From poor water or what. And we learned this by Haiti. We went down to Haiti, and because they didn't have a church, they didn't have a school. And so we got people, and we sent people down there and they said, we don't want that. We need a road out of here so we can sell the produce, so we'll have the money to do those things.
Wow.
So you need to think not what you think they need, but what they say they
What
need.
they actually need.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think the life lesson, a lot of times we do for people what we think they need.
Yes.
Instead of listening and asking about what they actually need.
That Haiti trip made it changed our whole program. We're a concern.
But that's that's a life lesson. Like in relationships, friendships, whatever it is, it's, am I listening to see what you actually need? Or am I presupposing what I think you need and then giving you that and you don't actually need it?
No, and you don't, and you haven't helped them at all.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
This is so good,
Great
ladies.
advice.
Thank you so much, Elaine. Oh my gosh, the life you have led, the life you have led. You are the Scorpion woman. I just honor you, and I honor the life you've led and how you've allowed the Lord to use you. And you're just big, beautiful heart. And
well, those are nice words.
So inspirational. So inspirational for me.
Well,
really is.
It's just that you turn your life into their life.
Turn your life into
Wow, I love that. I love that.
Turn your life into their life. Yeah. Okay, thank you all so much for listening. I know you have been riveted by every story like we have. If you're watching this, you saw me and Ellie like mouth open. If you're not watching it, you're listening via podcast. We were just waiting with bated breath for every word because I just love to hear about the faithfulness of God in situations that seem impossible. So we're going to wrap up. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Ellie. Thank you to everyone who is listening. We appreciate you joining us.